Walking a path along the roots of Pikes Peak, you take a fork in the road to the Anselm Society Digital Pub. Inside is a raucous conversation on the arts, faith, and how many years it's been since the Dallas Cowboys have made the NFC Championship game. At a corner table by the fire are two people. One of them is loudly informing the group that it's been almost 30 years. 30! And then he laughs like a Batman villain. And that's me, Matthew Mellema. And welcome to Believe to See, a podcast of the Anselm Society Arts Guild. Here at Believe to See, we explore the relationship between faith, art, and storytelling. Our goal is to help you connect the great story, the great stories, and our own stories in order to understand what it means to live with a Christian imagination. Let me start off by telling you a little history of the concept of the cowboy. The cowboy has a massive hold on the American imagination. In some respects, it captures a part of the American spirit. The bold young man on the edge of the frontier, playing by his own rules, but still fighting for the just cause. The open range and the coat of the West. And, well, America. It's an entire genre of movies. It's John Wayne and Clint Eastwood and Kevin Costner. It's the story that America tells itself about itself. So, with all those mythical archetypes floating around in the ether, the actual history of the actual American cowboy is pretty jarring, mainly because it was so short. The age of the American cowboy, as we think of it, the horse riding ranch hands who lead large herds of cattle on these drives across the open range, well, that didn't last very long. It didn't really get going until the years following the Civil War, so like the late 1860s. And they mostly went away with the invention of barbed wire in the 1880s. So we have this whole mythos of the American spirit built on a job that only existed for a couple decades. So the reason I bring this up is that this episode is on a related concept, a very short chapter in America that has had an outsized influence on the American psyche. And as luck would have it, this chapter of history is also about cowboys. As a boy growing up in the 1990s, I was a huge fan of the National Football League. I know I've probably bored a lot of you with my stories about the Denver Broncos. And as a fan of the National Football League, that meant that the Dallas Cowboys loomed large for me. The Cowboys, by popular acclamation, were America's team. They were also the dynasty team of the 1990s. And for a boy like me who was obsessed with football, they were absolutely everywhere. So looking back on the Dallas Cowboys dynasty, I was pretty shocked by how short it was. The Cowboys had an absolutely dominant run between 1992 and 1995. During that 4-year span, they won 3 Super Bowls. That 1995 team in particular had just a rare collection of superstar talent. But after 1995, that was it. It was a 4-year run. So how did such a brief moment of dominance leave a cultural legacy that still lives on? I mean, even those of you who are listening who are not sports fans know about the Dallas Cowboys, even though they haven't been good in 30 years. Why is that? Well, as you will hopefully see, it's because of the power of story. That's what we're discussing today, the story of the 1990s Dallas Cowboys, and how a powerful narrative can capture a nation's imagination in a way that far outstrips the original source material. Now, before we get going, I do want to make a couple notes because I totally understand that a lot of our listeners are not sports fans, and that is totally fine. Now, if you are a non-sports fan and you're feeling a little bit of trepidation about the sports topic here, let me make a couple assurances to you. First, this is fundamentally a human story. And that's what we're going to focus on here, the humans doing their story. Typical Anselm material. Second, when we do mention sports terms, we'll do our best to make sure that it makes sense, even if you yourself are not a sports fan. So, with those caveats firmly in place, let me introduce our guest, a friend of the show already, making his return, Luke Moja. Luke, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Oh, sure. Believe me. As soon as I saw this Dallas Cowboys documentary, I was like, okay, we need to do this. But listeners, if you look back to 2020 in the throes of the pandemic, Luke joined the show to talk about a Michael Jordan documentary. And now, well, here we go. Let's go back to, well, for 1990 sports. Uh, Luke, me and you, we've been friends for a very long time. Did you really? I've been doing the math here. I don't know what was more disturbing when my parents told me that they were our age when they all became friends with each other, or when I realized that my oldest son is about the same age that I was when we met. Which one of those is more disturbing to you?
The whole thing's more disturbing. I realized the other day that, when my parents were my age, they had a son who was in high school. So, that one really that got me pretty bad. So,
Ah,
yeah. So,
the math checks
yeah.
out. Oh crap. Okay.
I was just starting high school when my parents were the age I am currently. So, yeah.
Oh, darn it.
Pretty brutal. Yeah.
So yeah, me and Luke met. I was in fourth grade, going into fifth grade. You're 1 year ahead of me, even though we're only a few years apart, a few months apart. So you were in fifth grade, heading into sixth grade.
Yep.
So by the time we met, the era of the Cowboys was actually already over. We didn't quite realize it yet, but it was. And me and you were both massive sports fans. So we spent a lot of bonding time, like complaining about our sports teams. That's something we still do pretty much every single week over text. But why don't you tell us a little bit about your relationship with the Dallas Cowboys during the 90s when you were a kid?
So yeah, I think we probably have a pretty similar relationship with, how we felt about the, '90s Cowboys. But to be honest, I didn't like the Cowboys even before they started winning. So, Jimmy Johnson was the Cowboys coach, and, Michael Irvin was their receiver, probably their best player. And, Jimmy Johnson had coached the University of Miami in the '80s, and, Michael Irvin had played receiver for them in the '80s. And, so my dad went to Florida State in the '80s, and that's kind of when the Florida State-Miami rivalry got pretty big at that time. So, needless to say, my dad did not have a very, high opinion, a very favorable opinion of Jimmy Johnson and Michael Irvin. I won't, go into some of the terms that he used to, describe, both of them, but, needless to say, yes, and also Emmett, Emmett was a Gator, so another rival of Florida State.
Oh
So
yeah, it just keeps getting
I
worse.
came into this as not a Cowboys fan. So when they started winning and kind of became the bandwagon team and all that, then yeah, I was, that made it even worse. And as a kid, I couldn't understand why all these people would like a team just because they were winning. I'm like, why would you, I thought that was pretty stupid. All these people like a team just because I was all my friends and stuff. I was living in Georgia and stuff at the time, and all my friends started becoming Cowboys fans. I'm like, why are these people liking the Cowboys? We're not anywhere near Texas. Like, there's no like family history here of being Cowboys fans. It was just, the Cowboys were the cool thing, so they started winning, kind of became the bandwagon thing. And, they were cocky and flashy and, featured on all the commercials and all that. And so, their players all started getting arrested. And so they kind of came to represent, all the things I was against. So that was kind of my, perception of the Cowboys as a, young, impressionable, NFL fan, I guess. So
Yeah, I will say I think the very first conversation me and you had, again, like I was just ending fourth grade, you were just ending fifth grade. You had just moved to Colorado Springs from Georgia. And this is what boys do. This is what my kids do, right? They when you meet someone, you swap sports teams. Like, okay, I like this team. Well, I like this team. I like this team. And we did have an instant connection because we hated the same teams. And I agree with you. I did not have the college sports uh, animosities that you had, but when I was a boy, I absolutely despised the Cowboys. And for me, it was because a couple of my friends at church, I'll say their first names. I won't say it's not like I'm accusing them of any actual malfeasance here, but you know them too. So there was our friend in common, Grant, and then there was our friend Micah. They were both open and notorious, unrepentant Cowboys fans. And for no reason. Like it's one thing if you're a Cowboys fan, you're like, oh, I grew up in Dallas. Like my cousin's a Cowboys fan. I'm fine with that because he grew up in Dallas. But Micah and Grant, they just hopped on the bandwagon. They're like, these guys are cool. with their star and their winning and their blatant breaking of the law. I don't know why people liked it, but it drove me nuts because I was a loyal fan of all the Denver sports teams, long suffering at that point, and I just had to have Micah and Grant just rub it in my face. What one year, listeners, please bear with me. I'm getting to a point. One year, I remember it so vividly. All of Grant's favorite sports teams won their league's championship. He was a fan of the Cowboys, the Chicago Bulls, the Atlanta Braves, and the Colorado Avalanche. And by some miracle, all of his teams won the same year. And now, 30 years later, I'm still mad about it. That's how petty I am about this sort of thing. But so that's where we go. Both of us come from a stage of I think both of us just intrinsically we root against the dynasty, we root against the popular team. Like I've always hated the Yankees, I hate the Lakers, that I hated Alabama the past few years when they were really good. Just intrinsically, if all the media, if all the bandwagon fans are hopping on, I'm off it. And Luke, you are the same way, correct?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we saw it with the Patriots for all those years,
Yep. Oh, I hated the Patriots.
the Chiefs now. I
The
mean,
Chiefs now.
yeah, all the Lakers had their thing and the Yankees. Yeah, I totally agree with all of it. So I can't stand any of those teams. They tend to be like large market, obnoxious teams that the media can't quit, paying attention to. So that makes it all the more worse. But um, yeah, I'm definitely have always been against the bandwagon popular kind of teams. I tend to pull for most of the teams I pull for are kind of smaller market, long suffering kind of teams anyway. So that kind of makes it worse.
So maybe we should psychoanalyze ourselves, Luke. Why do we do this to ourselves? Like, wouldn't we be happier if we just cheered for good teams? In that way our teams would win. But we by definition, if a team is good, I'm against them. That it's like I'm setting myself up for misery. Like what why do we do this?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think there's a big thing with loyalty and just the reward. I mean, how did you feel when the Nuggets won that championship? I mean, you've been a Nuggets fan for so long. I mean,
Oh,
the
so good.
reward of that, as far as following the team for your whole life, as opposed to I just jumped on this bandwagon last year. I mean, that doesn't mean anything. You just the team won. It's like whoopee. It's other. You know, when and if the Jaguars ever win a Super Bowl, that's gonna be like, I mean, I've been in since the beginning. I mean, I've been a fan since day one. I mean, like, the reward of being that team and being loyal to that team, other than, it's that I feel like that's just so much more rewarding than, "Oh, I'm just gonna decide to be a Chiefs fan and, have a team in the Super Bowl every year," kinda thing, so
No, that makes sense. And listeners, if you were wondering that same thing, why do these two grown men with like real grown up jobs do this to themselves? I think that's a big reason why. I feel like we put in the time, so we hope we'll be rewarded. Like the Nuggets, my favorite NBA basketball team, won the title in 2023. It was one of the greatest sports moments of my life. Probably second place, just behind the Broncos winning when I was in fifth grade. But for most of my life, if you had asked me, like, will the Nuggets win an NBA title in your lifetime? I'd be like, well, maybe if I live to the year 200 live to the age of 200 as a cyborg, probably still no, no. Um, but they did. We did because we magically drafted the best player in the world in the second round, and he led us on this magical run, and it was fantastic. And Luke, when and if no, I will say when the Jaguars win a Super Bowl, you will have a similar feeling. It'll be fantastic. Whereas just jumping on the bandwagon because it's the cool thing and the popular thing, it's so cheap. It's so cheap. And I just think of Grant from back in fourth grade, and it drives me nuts. Grant, if you're out there, I talked to your parents recently, and it was lovely meeting them. They said you're doing well, and I'm very glad. But anyway, um, so with all that, let's talk about how we viewed the Cowboys as kids. We already talked about how we both hated them, but what was your understanding of the Cowboys in popular culture when you're a kid? Again, when they're in their heydays, we're in like second, third grade. So we're just getting started on football, but we're still sort of learning the ropes of fandom. So, what are your impressions in the moment of Cowboys?
yeah, I mean, I just think of all the commercials and everything. To be honest, like, and the nostalgia from watching the documentary, I think Pat Summerall and John Madden are like the voices that I think of when I think of the '90s Cowboy. I mean, I can't get Pat Summerall and John Madden's. They were the big announcers on the NFL. I think they went from CBS, and then when Fox got the NFL, that kind of became that. So they were always covering the Cowboys and the big NFC games, the week or whatever. So yeah, I just think, Pat Summerall, John Madden, all the commercials and everything, and just all the bandwagon stuff, people, why are these people Cowboys fans? It's just always this kind of, like we said, all the things we grew to hate about the whole bandwagon popular culture in sports kind of thing. So that's just what kind of, yeah, pops up. So
No, I'm really glad you mentioned that because I think a big theme of this, even if we go back to the American cowboy, like the cowboy itself in the 1800s, a lot of that is built on the story is built on nostalgia, right? It's something we as humans are built hardwired to believe that back in the day things were better than what they are now. There's Roman plays from like ancient Rome where a running gag is the old man is talking about how kids these days are all entitled and lazy and how back in his day this was a proper empire. Like this is just a human condition that we believe this. But I will say I believe in my bones that the 1990s were the best era of football. And I just cannot be persuaded otherwise.
all sports in general. You can't persuade me baseball, basketball, all of it. That you can't persuade me that it could be better than the night. I mean, yeah, I guess that makes us old.
I mean, our dads used to do that about the 60s and 70s, right? And now it's just our turn. And I know, listeners, I know logically it's because, well, that's when you were a kid and you were first becoming a fan. So all these players are going to seem larger than life and magical because that's when you grew up. And I understand that, but also, like you said, Luke, watching these old 90s clips, watching the 49ers and the Cowboys, and you have John Madden, the best announcer in NFL history, just telling like, boom, now that's football. It's like, this is football. You're right, John Madden. This is how it's supposed to be. And that's like nostalgia is a story we tell ourselves about the past. It's where we edit out all the things about the past that we didn't like, and we just remember the things we did like. And we think, wow, things were better back then, just like all humans throughout history have done. But you are absolutely right. There is that element. And then there's the Cowboys themselves. Did you ever see Luke? Oh, I saw your eyebrows raised. You had an idea. What was
Oh
it?
no, just go ahead. I have a feeling where you're kind of going with this, but yeah,
Okay. So one of the things that I think is defining here, did you ever watch the movie Little Giants?
yeah. It's been a long time, so I don't
Uh,
remember a whole lot about it, but yeah, I do. Yeah,
so me and my brother, Jeremy, it was one of our favorite movies we were kids. We watched it so many times. Showed it to our kids recently, Luke. I loved it. I don't know if it's good, but I still loved it. But listeners, if you haven't seen it, I wouldn't say go out of your way for it. But if you're like 8-year-old son's of a sports fan, he'd like it. But it's this very typical kids movie where the ragtag group of like little weirdo kids who can't play needs to have a big football game against the cool champion kids. And the ragtag group of misfits is named the Giants, Little Giants. You get the title now. And the bad guy team of flashy jerk winners is called the Cowboys. And based on that time, that was perfect because if you're the winner, if you're the flashy guy, if you're like that jerk who no one really likes but wins all the time, you are the Cowboys. You think about like the Cowboys starter jacket. You see that Dallas star everywhere. They're selling Pepsi, they're selling Doritos. They're everywhere, especially if you're a boy and your friends at church like them and they're driving you nuts. Like they're absolutely everywhere. But do you have specific memories of the Cowboys actually playing football, or is it all just sort of in the ether?
no, I actually have specific memories. I didn't like the 49ers either, but I remember blatantly pulling for the 49ers in that 94 NFC championship game. That was when the Cowboys had won back-to-back Super Bowls. I just wanted anybody to beat them. Like, I was just like, I don't care who it is. I just want somebody to beat them. So I remember that game. I remember, Deion Sanders playing for the 49ers and all that. I remember, Pat Summerall and John Madden were calling the game, and I think I was watching it with a friend of mine in Georgia, and it was like we were like 7, 8 years old, something like that. And I do remember clearly some moments, from actually watching those games, and especially as I got a little older. But I remember, like, I would pull for pretty much anybody against the Cowboys. It was,
Yep. When I was a kid, I had a football card collection, and this will not surprise many people. I used to organize them according to team, starting with the front was my favorite team, the Broncos, then going to my second favorite, third favorite, all the way to least favorite. So the Cowboys were way at the back, right? And my enduring memory of watching the Cowboys play was in the Super Bowl in 1995, so Super Bowl 30
it's the Steelers. Yeah.
against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And again, I didn't care for the Steelers, but I was absolutely rooting for them against the Cowboys. And I must have been in 3rd grade. I got so upset when it was clear the Cowboys were going to win that I stormed out and just like started like reading a book about birds underneath my desk in my room. And my mom comes up like, I can't believe my son isn't watching the Super Bowl. I'm thinking, it's because the Cowboys have ruined football for me, Mom. And yeah, I guess that's my rosebud. This might be putting a lot of pieces together. But so that's where we are. And again, one of the headlines here is we and you were both kids. We were kind of too young to really appreciate it when the Cowboys were actually good. Like we couldn't watch football, really know what's going on because like we were in like 3rd and 4th grade. But we had this impression of who the Cowboys were just from the ether, the fact that the story had gotten so big by that point. So now, come along to today, we have this documentary on Netflix. Just came out a few weeks ago. It's called America's Team, and it's about the 1990s Cowboys. But it's really the story about Jerry Jones, the owner of the Cowboys, told through the lens of the early 90s. So now, me and you get the chance to go back as grown-ups and hear the whole story. So let's start with your high level takes, Luke. You, as a grown-up, what were your takes of this story about Jerry Jones and his 1990s Cowboys?
Well, I mean, I think it confirmed a lot of things we, kind of thought about Jerry Jones to begin with. I mean, I think it was the first episode. He's like, yeah, it's a soap opera 24/7, 365. I'm like, yeah, that pretty much sums up the Cowboys since, for the last 35 years or whatever. Even now, I mean, you think about, all the Micah Parsons stuff and all that this offseason. I mean, it's nothing's changed. I mean, it's pretty much been the same kind of thing, except they don't win now. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think it confirmed a lot of the things, that we had thought, and just kind of, gave us a little more insight into the whole story with Jerry Jones and all that. And
Yeah.
I thought it kind of gave like a human aspect to every, to kind of to the characters, I guess, is, our preconceived notions about everything and all that. I thought it kind of humanized a lot of the characters from the story, I guess you would say.
I think that's a good way to put it. I think you're right to start with Jerry Jones. So, for again, listeners not familiar, Jerry Jones is the owner of the Dallas Cowboys. He's been the owner since I think 1989 is when he bought it, and he's a mixture of an NFL owner and like a carnival barker. Like he's this P.T. Barnum like figure who's always he has a genius for marketing and he believes he has a genius for football. He legitimately is a marketing genius. The football thing is a different thing, but he struck me as one of these characters who almost doesn't seem real. Like it seems like he was written by like a British author who's trying to capture the spirit of America, both for good and for bad. Because he's this guy, he's in his early 80s now, right? So when he's buying the Cowboys, he's in his late 40s, early 50s. And I think this is just so important for understanding this story. He's an oil man. Like he grows up in Arkansas, kind of in the sticks. He plays football at the University of Arkansas, wins a national championship there, has this huge thrill, this rush as a very young man. Then he decides, I'm just going to make a ton of money. So he bounces around from industry to industry. Eventually, he settles on the oil business. And to be an oil man, you have to be a gambler because you're spending massive sums of money on these oil rigs that may or may not have any oil underneath them. So he talks in the very first episode about being $50 million in debt. And I'm thinking like, oh, I couldn't, this is not for him, but yeah. But he's $50 million in debt and he scrapes together enough to build one more oil rig. Basically, he's rolling the dice one more time. It's almost literally a dice roll. And it's a gusher. And it makes him like hundreds of millions of dollars. and he uses that to buy the Dallas Cowboys. And then he turns them into what they are. And throughout his tenure there, he's kind of carried that same persona, right? He's like he's a wildcatter, he's a gambler, he's this outsider coming in to buy the Dallas Cowboys. He has all this folksy pseudo wisdom that he's dispensing. What were your impressions about Jerry Jones as like a character?
Yeah, I mean, he seemed kind of like a character from a movie or something like that. I mean, that's how he kind of comes across too. I mean, that didn't you kind of confirmed a lot of the things we already think about Jerry, I guess. But yeah, I didn't know the whole backstory about the oil thing and the he got took the big gamble and got the gusher and all that. And he talked about how he always wanted to buy a NFL team and all this kind of thing. So just that whole backstory. But yeah, just the whole thing with Jerry. I mean, I guess for those that don't know, most NFL owners hire a general manager to take care of the football aspect of the business. Jerry Jones is his own general manager. He has been his own general manager since he bought the team. So he thinks not only can he own the team and do all the marketing stuff, which obviously, like you said, he's been a genius and really changed the NFL, through that whole thing as far as the revenue for the NFL. But he the whole time has decided he's going to be his own general manager. So he thinks he can run the football aspect of the operation as well, and he has the whole time he's owned the team. So for better or worse, yeah, it's just kind of a interesting situation, and just some of the little comments that he made in the documentary and all that. It's like, yeah, it sounds about right. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. So
It's like, oh, that explains a lot. Okay,
yeah.
but yeah, and again, like even listeners, even if you're not a sports fan, I think there's a lot to be found in this documentary just as a character study in this person. There's other fascinating people too that we'll get to, but this person who, again, like you said, Luke, most people who buy an NFL team, they're wildly successful in some other aspect, right? They're a tech billionaire, whatever. They're like, okay, I'll buy the team, then I'll hire a general manager who makes all the football decisions. Who's like, okay, we'll trade this guy, we'll cut this guy, we'll hire this guy, because that's what you do. You hire an expert. But Jerry, he's like, well, I can do this better than anyone else. And for a while, it looked like that was the case. But now we have literally 30 years of evidence where he hasn't done it. And he has no intention of changing his mind. Like, they interviewed him, and it's like, no. Some people say you hire a general manager for the buffer to take away the pain. He's like, but I like the pain. I like the risk. It's like, oh my gosh, you a character in a William Faulkner novel? What's going on here? Um, but the big thing that he did early on, and again, just telling the story of the Dallas Cowboys, is he brought in Jimmy Johnson as the head football coach. So, Luke, you and your family had more experience than my family did with Jimmy Johnson. So, tell us about this other very colorful human character.
Yeah, so he was the coach for the University of Miami in the 80s, when Miami kind of became a football powerhouse, won at least one national championship. I think, certainly more in the early 90s and stuff after he left, but he kind of was what started that whole thing. And yeah, kind of the same as the Cowboys eventually kind of became. University of Miami kind of had that cocky, flashy kind of law breaking kind of attitude. Yeah, you can go back and kind of do a little more research on all that. But yeah, they
Swagger.
swagger, yeah, swagger was one way to put it. Yeah. So, and needless to say, like I was talking about with my family, my dad went to Florida State. My family was a bunch of big Florida State fans,
Huge rivals with Miami.
huge rivals in the 80s. That's when that rivalry kind of started. So when I was, yeah, a kid, my dad generally referred to Jimmy Johnson as Satan. So, yeah, so that's where, I came with that. It's, Jimmy Johnson, was Satan, and Michael Irvin was a criminal. So I was like, the Cowboys' best player's a criminal and their coach is Satan. So like I said, come in and do it from that point of view.
Picture like little first grader Luke be like, oh, okay, well.
Yeah. And so I'll also say this from the documentary, I didn't realize that the Jaguars had actually been interested in trying to hire Jimmy Johnson as their first coach. and
Yeah, your favorite
I was
team.
horrified, by that. There's a good chance that if that had happened, that I would not be a Jaguars fan today. So,
Oh man, on Earth 2 where Jimmy Johnson leaves the Cowboys to coach the Jaguars, what's Luke like in that world?
that's a good question.
Maybe you just went full Jimmy Johnson, and if that happened, you'd be like living in Vegas as like a gambler or something. You'd have like gold chains around your neck here. That's
it could be,
Jimmy Johnson, Luke.
you never know. It could be, and you don't know. It would be a definitely an alternate reality there. So, I don't know what I my dad's family was like Miami Dolphins fans, and my mom's family was Atlanta Falcons fans. So maybe I would be a Dolphins or a Falcons fan. Unfortunately,
Ooh,
that's hard for me to. Yeah. So, but
ooh.
yeah,
I'm just gonna stare off wistfully, like, oh,
yeah,
oh, oh. But but yeah, to your point there, Jimmy Johnson, he's this big, swaggering college football coach from the University of Miami. So again, very flashy. Picture like hanging out with celebrities on yachts, that sort of stuff, where we all were pretty sure they were breaking a lot of rules, but we couldn't quite prove it. And then but he's extremely successful. And this is something I didn't really realize. Jimmy Johnson also played college football at Arkansas, was on the same team as Jerry Jones, Cowboys owner. They were roommates. Like, that's just mind blowing. So they both win a college national championship together at Arkansas. And they talked about how just like formative that was. And of course that is. Like, me and you both played sports throughout high school, and we know like the way you like the camaraderie you build with your teammates, especially when you win a big game. So you can only imagine what it would be to win a college football title when you're 20 years old at this football crazed region like Arkansas. So that kind of defines them both. And then Jerry Jones, he buys the team. First thing, he brings in his old college buddy to coach it. And that was roundly criticized at the time because we see often successful college coaches come to the NFL and they realize that coaching rich 28-year-olds is a lot harder than poor 18-year-olds, and most of them fail, but Johnson didn't. And there's a lot of reasons for it. And I thought the reasons for the success of the 1990s Cowboys was fascinating because after a few very rough years, as they're like getting their feet under them, the Cowboys really start to take off. And both of these very stubborn, very prideful, ego driven men to this day still disagree on what was the cause of the Cowboys' success. Luke, why don't you delve into this? Are you Team Jerry, Team Jimmy? Explain the whole controversy of why the Cowboys became suddenly successful.
yeah. So the fact that they actually became successful, I mean, Jerry Jones basically bought a team, made himself the general manager, and then hired his friend to coach the team. I mean, I don't know that that's necessarily the path to success in the NFL generally, but
Luke, if I buy an NFL team, I'll appoint you the head coach. But anyway, keep going.
well, I appreciate that. I think based on what I saw this past weekend, I could probably do a better job than some of the NFL head coaches right now. But yeah, I'm kind of kidding. But anyway, yeah, that whole thing, yeah, how that actually, just kind of fell into place and worked out. I mean, they talked about the Herschel Walker trade was a big thing, and they argued over whose idea that was, and that was kind of a big part of the rift, I guess. Was Jimmy Johnson took full credit for that whole thing, which kind of kicked off the Cowboys dynasty. For those who don't know, Herschel Walker was a running back who was kind of the Cowboys' best player when Jerry Jones bought the team.
Their only
Yeah,
good
pretty much
player.
their only good player, and they ended up trading him for what ended up being players and ended up being a bunch of draft picks, including I think Emmitt Smith ended up being a draft pick from that trade, and some other players that became kind of played crucial roles on that team. So it was kind of it was obviously roundly criticized. You just traded your only good player, and then that ended up being what kind of led to the dynasty of 3 Super Bowl championships in 4 years. So just kind of if you think about the sequence like we were talking about, I mean, you buy the team, you make yourself the general manager, you make your friend the coach, and you trade your best player. That ends up winning you 3 Super Bowls in 4 years. I mean, that's kind of yeah, but Yeah, I would say just the fact Jerry Jones' ego and Jimmy Johnson's ego were never going to, fit together for that long. I think that's what kind of, tore the whole thing apart. Yeah, just hearing that story is like, okay, yeah, I can understand why this didn't work. And both of them wanted an amount of credit for the success that they didn't feel like they may be getting. So those egos just couldn't work together, I guess.
It was an absolutely fascinating, just human story of human ambition and human frailty. Again, this almost like Shakespearean. Like it was so weird because like you said, Luke, when Jerry Jones buys the team, brings over Jimmy Johnson, the Cowboys have one good player, Herschel Walker, and he's like the best running back in the league. He's a superstar, but the rest of the team is awful. So they eventually decide to trade him, and they trade him to the Vikings for what turns out to be a whole bunch of draft picks, which, according to the popular wisdom of the time, nowadays, like history's vindicated this approach. But at the time, that was seen as crazy. But they got all these draft picks and they just hit all the draft picks out of the park. Like I said, they got Emmett Smith, they got all these like Pro Bowlers, superstars, and it's those draft picks that were the core of the team that won 3 Super Bowls in 4 years. Like it's the trade that made the Dallas Cowboys. Both of these very proud, very prideful, very ego-driven men are very aware of it, and even decades later, they're both sniping with each other about whose idea it was. It's just astonishing. Like I picture like you can picture just being like a version where they're like, well, it was a group effort. I had an idea, Jerry had an idea. We are both on the same page, so we both get some credit. No, neither one of them is happy with that, and that is bonkers to me. Like if either one of them just let the other one have the credit, they could have gone for so long. But it ended up because of this just very petty human bickering that things fall apart. So to Luke, now let's walk the listeners through how the relationship between Jimmy Johnson and Jerry Jones just implodes because it's so
Oh,
weird.
the whole story about they were at the owners meeting or whatever, and,
Yep.
yeah, Jerry Jones comes over and all the coaches, like, toast him with the drinks, and Jimmy just sits there with his arms folded, and Jerry Jones basically goes crazy and, goes and tells all the media members from Dallas that he's gonna fire blankety blank Jimmy Johnson.
Yeah, he had some colorful
Yeah,
language.
we'll keep it family friendly and, not go into the actual words that were said, but, yeah,
Oh, just wait. We'll really have to watch that here soon. But
yeah.
like you said, Luke, it was again like me and you as kids. I had this vague idea that Jimmy Johnson left the Cowboys. And if I would have thought about it, it'd be like it's kind of weird because he won 2 Super Bowls in a row. But the story is even weirder. Like after they win their second Super Bowl in a row, they're at this big owners meeting with like all the fancy owners and all the GMs, all the football people. Jerry Jones has had a few drinks. He's feeling good. Jimmy Johnson, the other Cowboys coach, has had a few drinks. They're feeling good. Jerry Jones walks up and, like you said, he does a toast like, "How about them Cowboys?" And Jimmy Johnson doesn't join the toast. This sounds made up, but that was the catalyst for Jerry Jones firing the back-to-back Super Bowl winning coach. Like, were you aware of that? Did you just learn about it? Like, what's going through your mind as you're
I
processing
didn't know
that?
that's how it went down. I mean, I vaguely remembered all that, kinda the thing happening is like, okay, why did they get rid of a coach who just won back-to-back Super Bowls? And I think it actually ended up I don't think they technically fired him. I think they kind of mutually parted ways because they both couldn't stand each other so much by that point that they kinda made it a mutual decision that neither of them wanted it to continue. But yeah, just the fact that that's how that whole thing started and went down, and they just kind of started sniping at each other, and it just deteriorated from there. And I guess human egos, that's the type of thing when you have success, that's kind of that's why I guess in a lot of situations, I mean, I guess you could bring this into business and sports and whatever else. A lot of times the reason things can't, these dynasties and stuff don't last is because people's egos get in the way, and multiple people want credit for certain things. And yeah, it just does, those egos eventually collide, and that's what happens. So
Again, it's almost Shakespearean. These two guys who are like they're like brothers, right? They're brothers in arms. They're roommates. They're friends. They're winning a national championship together. They have that camaraderie, that bond. They win 2 Super Bowls together, defying all the odds, and then they're both just torn apart by their own egos. And it's so stupid, but it's also relatable. And it was just absolutely remarkable. And they kind of proved in the later decades both of them kind of needed each other because neither of them came anywhere close to matching the success of that.
No, not at all. I mean, Jimmy Johnson went and coached the Dolphins and, didn't have success at
No.
all, and, yeah, we know what happened with the Cowboys after that. I mean, I guess they got the one Super Bowl with Barry Switzer, who, again, I guess we should go into this too. After Jimmy Johnson left, Jerry Jones just went and hired another one of his buddies to coach the team. So,
Who is also on that team at University of Arkansas, which is just so
and
silly.
then they win another Super Bowl, right? It's like, how did you?
Yeah, there was this very the comment that Jerry Jones made that's like in sports, there's almost no coming back from, was again, he may have had a few. He says the Dallas Cowboys team was so good, 500 coaches could have won back-to-back Super Bowls with them. And even decades later, interviewing Jimmy Johnson, you can tell like that still hurts. It's one of those things where me and you are both we're on the jock range, right? I would say we both have jockish tendencies. That's just not something you say. That's just so out of bounds. It's like there's kind of no coming back from that in a sports relationship, but he kind of tries to prove it by bringing in Barry Switzer, who's another fascinating character, who's another college coach, another one of Jerry Jones' old buddies, and he does win a Super Bowl, but with the players, the core players from the Jimmy Johnson trade, in the way that like a lot of some of the players would be like, they'd say they won it despite the coach, not because of him. So you can make hay of whatever you will with that, but let's talk about the players now because there's so many fascinating characters among the players. So listeners, again, because I recognize some of y'all aren't going to sports fans, I'll kind of tick through them to sort of give you a rundown. It's sort of like the cast of characters at the start of a Shakespeare play. Then Luke, I'll let you take whichever one you want to talk about and just let you do your work there. So there's Troy Aikman, the all-American quarterback. He's got like the chiseled jaw and the blonde hair, and he's the golden boy. There's Emmitt Smith, the running back who was kind of undersized, not overly athletic, it didn't seem like, but became one of the best running backs of all time and just dominant rusher. There's Michael Irvin, the wide receiver from the University of Miami, always kind of shady, skirting the law, huge personality, and that kind of catches up with him. There's Charles Haley, the defensive lineman, so the guy in charge of sacking the quarterback, literal crazy person. Like that's not even me just being flip. It's like, oh, he's mentally ill. And then finally there's Deion Sanders, someone who me and you both love, Luke. Huge personality, one of the best defensive backs ever, prime time, one of the most iconic athletes of the 90s, and just a huge larger than life personality. Ironically, all of these people have like experience doing television. They're all I don't think Haley did, all the others did. So they're all really great interviews. They're all so good communicating their thoughts, and they're just huge personalities. Again, human stories amidst this sports story. So, Luke, what struck you most about this cast of characters?
Well, first off, I didn't realize all that stuff about Charles Haley. I did not know any of those stories. Some of the stuff they were talking about. Yeah, we won't get into it here. But yeah, if you watch the
It's
documentary,
a family podcast, but yes, there were some pretty shocking revelations.
yeah, stuff that I just didn't realize that he was yeah, had those kind of issues. But yeah, I mean, I think yeah, a lot of it. One thing, you just kind of seeing their different personalities and everything. Some of it kind of confirmed things you already kind of suspected, and then some of it was like, oh, okay, it did kind of humanize them and made you think, okay, they really did care about each other. They talked about the bond they had, and they how they really cared about their teammates and their families and all that kind of thing. So despite a lot of the other stuff, but the one thing with just Michael Irvin being so much more open about everything, and he just kind of wore it all on his sleeve there. Talking about some of the trouble they got into and some of the things that went on, and some of the other players were kind of like hesitant to go into all that. And they get to Michael Irvin, he's like, "Yeah, I'll tell you
Yep.
whatever story you want to hear. Like, hey, let's talk about whatever kind of thing." It's like, yeah, you want stories, I'll tell you.
That's where, the fact that we were kids at the time, I heard stuff trickle down. Like, here's a joke my dad told me back in the day. What do you call a ring of drug dealers in Dallas? A huddle.
Yeah, that's
So
pretty much how my yeah.
so I knew there are all these rumors about some vague stuff going on, but when they went into detail, like again, listeners, we'll keep it vague for but there was this house, this kind of crappy McMansion, just across the street from the Cowboys practice facility, and they called it the White House. And it was the source of all sorts of debauchery that you can imagine. The stories were pretty awful, and all the you could tell the players that they interviewed, most of them would get kind of sheepish, like, "Oh, I don't want to reap what I sowed." And so they're like, "Oh, I'm not going to talk about that." Then Michael Irvin, who's in charge, is like, "I'll tell you all about it. So let me tell you about all the horrible acts of depravity I got into." And it was really again, this is one of the things getting into it as an adult where it's like, "Oh, that's what our parents were telling jokes about when they thought we weren't listening."
Yeah, exactly.
um but that shows a human side, absolutely. Like you'd see, like you mentioned, Luke, this bond between the players. Like Troy Aikman, the golden haired, square jawed golden boy, and Emmett Smith, the undersized running back who turns into the best in the league, and Michael Irvin, this brash, law breaking, huge personality. You could tell they have a genuine bond with each other. And that was really admirable in a lot. Again, this camaraderie that you have with the teammates, the sort of brotherhood. But you saw the good aspect of that, and then also the bad aspect, because let me just say, I feel when Michael Irvin was charged with possession of cocaine, among other things, uh, I kind of sided with the DA. The DA was kind of like, "Hey, Michael Irvin, I'm going to clean up the language. I think this is awful and reprehensible. You are leveraging your fame and power to take advantage of sort of these underprivileged people underneath you." It's like, "Yep, that sums it up." Uh, but the teammates stick by him. It's like loyalty to the brother, and it's one of those things where it almost seems like something you'd wrestle with in like a novel or a TV series. Like, okay, there's something noble there, but there's also just straight up enabling bad behavior. Like the stories of the Dallas Police Department did not cover themselves with glory in this series. Just basically like the players just like, yeah, we could break the law all we wanted. We never get arrested because we were cowboys. It's like, oh, that's not caused the reaction to me that you think it does. I don't think that's that cool, dude. But how does this debauchery hit you now as an adult who knows the full spectrum, the full scope of it, as opposed to like a kid when it's just sort of in the ether?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, as a kid, you didn't know the whole story, but you kind of knew, you heard stories about Cowboys players getting in trouble with the law and kind of the stuff that was going on. As a kid, you didn't know what
Hmm.
was going on, but you heard the jokes, like people would tell and that kind of thing, and how our families, kind of thought about the Cowboys at that time. But um, yeah, it was. They, the fact that they had the guy who they called like the fixer or whatever who would come get them out of trouble when they
Oh
got
my gosh, that was so sketchy.
who come get them out of trouble anytime they got in trouble with the law or whatever. And it was like, yeah, okay, this is really happening. And you talked about the thing with Michael Irvin. Again, there was something kind of noble and admirable about the bond with the players and how they supported him and all that. But it's like, okay, like really.
He's honestly doing really awful stuff right now. You guys see that, right? Like this is horrible stuff he's
Like
doing to
he should probably go to jail. Like it's like this guy should probably
yeah,
go.
like he's harming people here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, and it was like, okay, like, where, what are we, again, you admire kind of the camaraderie and the family, thing that the team had, but, just enabling some of the bad behavior and some of the stories of the other players and all that kind of thing. It was like, okay, yeah, you obviously, heard stories about things like that going on, but, and I mean, to be honest, like, I thought, this probably, we're probably picking on them a little bit. I mean, this probably isn't an isolated case of celebrities and athletes taking advantage of their, fame to, stay out of trouble with the law and, do, you know, engage in debauchery and that kind of thing. So, I mean, it was probably this, not a new thing as far as celebrities and athletes go, but just to you hear the stories and they were so much in the public eye and everything, and just yeah, it was like they got away with a lot of stuff that was kind of like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, like you said, it's really nothing new. Like you can go back throughout human history, the pharaohs, the Roman emperors, powerful men throughout history have leveraged their power to engage in all sorts of destructive debauchery at the expense of those less powerful than themselves. Like that is nothing new. It's part of the fallen human condition. But seeing it played out on this scale, like you said, like we all know professional athletes do this sort of stuff all the time. It's just the seedy underside of, bunch of privileged people who have been shielded from consequences, right? But seeing it on the scale with America's team, where it was so out there, it was just part of the shared monoculture at the time. And again, just getting to the Shakespearean elements of it, it's kind of one of the things that drove the Cowboys away that ended the dynasty. Like there's really two things that did it. One, the stupid ego competition between Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson, and two, the trial of Michael Irvin for cocaine possession, because that happened after the third Super Bowl, and it looked like Michael Irvin might go to jail for years. He finally gets an obvious sweetheart deal from like the DA's office. That was absolutely ridiculous. But by then the damage had been done, and the Cowboys were never the same. And listeners, I just need to emphasize this to you. The Cowboys have not been to the NFC Championship game since 1995, the 1995 season. So just some numbers here. There's currently 32 teams in the NFL. Back then there were 28. And the NFC Championship game is like the semifinals. So the winner of that game goes to the Super Bowl. So it basically means you're one of the final four teams in the league. And they have not made it there in about 30 years. If you're just doing blind luck. That's the odds are like what, 1 in 8, 1 in 7. You'd expect them to just get there blindly 4 or 5 times in that period. Like I know the Broncos have gotten there 5 times in that period. Jaguars have gotten there at least
Three,
twice, right?
three.
3 times. There you go. So so it like I think they're the only team that has not made a championship game in that time
Maybe
period.
maybe the Browns and the Dolphins,
Did the
maybe.
Browns not make it?
I don't.
Oh, I'm definitely gonna look that up. But anyway,
Well, I mean, there's some of the newer teams. Like I don't think that the Texans haven't made. There's some of the newer teams and stuff,
are
and
the Texans? Yeah. Well, at any rate, it's definitely the longest active streak, right? Because like Browns and Texans had the um got the streak started earlier. So they've had this run of mediocrity, and they're kind of, when you look below the surface, even today, they're kind of a ridiculous organization. Like you mentioned, Luke, they just traded away their best player because Jerry Jones let his ego get in the way and did something silly and reckless.
imagine that.
He gambled and it came up snake eyes. Um, but they're still doing this, but they still have this reputation where we're kind of running a little low on time. So this is what I kind of want to wrap up on. It's the enduring legacy of the Cowboys, despite the fact that for 30 years they've been mediocre to bad. How do you explain that enduring legacy?
So I was thinking about this as well, and I think it goes back not just to the '90s, but back to the '70s, like when they became America's team.
Uh-huh.
I mean, Roger Staubach was the quarterback. They had Tom Landry as their coach. They were kind of a little more like upstanding citizens then. I mean, even if you
Yeah, they were the good guys then.
yeah, and even if you, like, talk to our parents and stuff, it's like the Cowboys were, like, beloved in the '70s, like, they were kinda like the, that's when they became America's team, they won multiple Super Bowls in the '70s, and, that's kinda when that became so that's kinda when that became in the culture, so I think a lot of it's passed down, I mean, from, like, parents to their children and stuff, like, people are, Cowboys fans because of the '70s and the '90s Cowboys kinda thing, so I think also just the fact that Jerry Jones is such a great marketer, and we know the Cowboys are like the, most valuable American sports franchise still, even though they haven't won anything in
In
30
the
years.
world, most valuable sports franchise in the
Yeah,
world.
okay, I didn't know if there was some European soccer team or something that was ahead of them. I knew it was in America, but
No, Cowboys haven't beat. Take that, Real
yeah, there
Madrid.
there you go. But, yeah, I think just the marketing and just the fact that, just down through generations of Cowboys fans, they've just been in such the limelight and everything, and like you said, Jerry Jones summed it up, it's a soap opera 24/7, 365, so they're always I mean, if you watch the sports talk shows and stuff, they're talking about the Cowboys every day, even though the Cowboys aren't relevant. I mean, they what what do they win 5 games last year or something. I mean, it's like, maybe it was more than that. I can't remember, but they certainly didn't make the playoffs last year, and still they're you know front page news and talked about on all the sports talk shows and that kind of thing. So um, yeah, it's just I think the marketing and just the franchise of the Cowboys and just how they've come down through the generations of Cowboys fans. I guess they remain popular and remain valuable, and I think that you know I think Jerry Jones brought a lot of that entertainment value into the NFL, of making it, not just about football, but about entertainment. And the Cowboys are about entertainment, obviously, and not so much about football these days. So I think that kind of keeps them relevant. Even though, yeah, they haven't won anything in 30 years. So yeah.
Yeah, I think you hit a lot of the really important points there. Like you mentioned, they already had this basis as, quote unquote America's team in the 1970s. They won 2 Super Bowls. That was kind of weird for me too. I always assumed it was more, but it was 2 Super Bowls, one against the Dolphins, one against the Broncos, which this was before I was born, but I'm still salty about. But you're right, they had this reputation then as being they're the good guys. Tom Landry, their coach, was super classy. He wore a fedora. He was like this very upright, buttoned up citizen. Roger Staubach, their star quarterback, he was kind of the antithesis of Joe Namath, who was like the libertine quarterback over in New York. Roger Staubach was the upstanding family man, this counterpoint to Joe Namath, and they had that. Obviously, they're in Dallas, which is the major city in the major football country, right? So they have that going for them as well. But I do think a lot of it is the reason they're still relevant now is that 4-year Dallas Cowboy run. I think that is the majority of the reason. The stories of these larger than life players, this larger than life coach, this larger than life owner who is brilliant at marketing and getting the Cowboy brand out there in all these innovative ways. I think they're still running on that. Deion Sanders had this really interesting statement toward the end of his interview, and again, me and Luke both love Deion Sanders for different reasons. Deion Sanders was a star player at Florida State, Luke's favorite school, and now he's the head football coach at Colorado University. It's just one of the teams I really support. So we both love Coach Prime, but he had this statement where he was saying the current Cowboys, 30 years on, they're not chasing, the usual rivals. Like they're not chasing the Philadelphia Eagles or the New York Giants or San Francisco 49ers. Today's Cowboys are chasing the 90s Cowboys. And I think that's absolutely true. Absolutely true. For good and probably for the current Cowboys for bad. They have to live up to this legend that even though they're 30 years on, still has this outsized role, even in fans who were born after those 90s Cowboys. To me, it just shows the power of story, the power of myth, and the power of these sort of human tales that can just keep reverberating down through the decades, way after the key players are already off the scene. So there we go. The 1990s Cowboys. Luke, would you recommend the America's Team documentary? To who would you recommend it to?
Definitely for sports fans our age, type of people who were kids at that time or whatever, and remember that whole time period there with the Cowboys, whether you loved them or hated them. There really wasn't any in between. You either loved them or hated them, and
No,
obviously we
exactly.
hated them. But yeah, I would definitely. I will say it's not exactly family friendly. There's definitely some
No, no, you're right.
some language and some yeah, like we talked about, some of the debauchery that's
Yeah, nothing explicit, but even though they're trying to be a little indirect about it, some of that content, there's just no getting around.
yeah, you know what they're talking about. You know what's going on, but
Yes, definitely not a show that our moms would
no,
watch,
no,
but
definitely,
me and you are the target center of the target demographic, right?
absolutely, yeah,
Nostalgic 30 somethings
yeah.
looking back on the glory days.
Guys in their late 30s, early 40s who remember the nostalgia of the 90s NFL, I think is probably the target
Exactly.
target market. So if you're in that demographic, I would definitely recommend
Yep,
it.
absolutely. Come for nostalgia, stay for the human stories. Like again, Jerry Jones, Jimmy Johnson, Michael Irvin, Deion Sanders. These are these are characters from like myth, and you get to see their actual stories, and it is so fascinating. So, Luke Moja, thank you again for joining me here. Where can we find you? Are you on social? Where can we look for your stuff?
Yes, I'm on social media, Instagram. So I'm a chiropractor, so I'm under Dr. Luke Moja, so just DrLukeMoja on Instagram. Just, I think, under Luke David Moja on Facebook, and then my business is called Hope Spring Functional Wellness. We do health coaching and chiropractic care and functional medicine. So you can look that up. The website's hopespringfunctional.com. Just to go a plug for my business and career here. So while I have the chance.
That's right. And I'll keep the plug going. You can look him up even if you live in Florida now, but you can look that up even if you're not in Florida.
Absolutely, yeah. We do consulting and everything for online virtually. So if you have health issues that you need help with, yeah, you look us up.
And if you do look him up, Luke, I think I can say this. He guarantees the primary focus will be your health, the health of the patient, and he will rarely, if ever, bring up his hatred of the 90s Cowboys.
Yeah, that we won't bring that up unless that just happens to come up for some reason. So yeah.
I can't say it would never happen, but I'm guessing that would be a rare thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect that to come up in a consultation or anything, but you never know. So, you know, y- I will say this as a doctor, you never know what patients are going to tell you. So I'll just I'll kind of end with that.
There we go. And listeners, as you can probably imagine, things are winding down at the Anselm Society Digital Pub. The fire is down to embers, the customers are trundling home, and you've polished off your final glass. Once again, Believe to See is a podcast of the Anselm Society Arts Guild. If you have an extra maybe 30 seconds or so to spare, please rate and review the show on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much for listening, and we will catch you next time.